Thank you everyone for joining us this Thursday for our Spotlight on webinar, a look at server comparison. My name is Allison Kim, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Latera Microsystems. Just a reminder for those who are new to our webinar series, each webinar is recorded, so you will receive a recording of today's session after it is over. Now, before I kick it off to our presenter, Victor Tamayo, a sales engineer here at Latera, I just want to run through a few housekeeping items. The webinar will run for about 30 minutes, and at the end there will be time for a Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can submit them in our questions panel, and we will get to them at the end. If we run out of time, we will send a follow-up to answer your questions. With that said, Victor, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hey everyone, really excited to walk through server comparison with you guys today, and a little bit about myself. I'm one of the sales engineers here at Latera Microsystems, which really means I get the benefit of going to firms from a sole practitioner to a 1,000-attorney firm, learning more about the firms, the trends in the industry, and today we'll actually be looking at server comparison. So with that said, we can kick it off here. So when it comes to comparison itself, it's something that every law firm is familiar with. It's a critical part of the document lifecycle, but we understand that it's not the only part of the document lifecycle. So when it comes to our comparisons, we want to make sure that our attorneys, our staff, are able to get accurate, clean comparisons in a way that fits into their workflow. So traditionally, that meant that the comparison would be accomplished via the local machine. The user would pull up their two documents, they would be sitting on their machine, they would open up their client version of whatever comparison solution they might be using and compare their two documents. However, today we've started to see that the traditional workflow has shifted to where more and more often we see that attorneys and legal staff are viewing these documents from a mobile device, from a non-Windows device, and via other devices that aren't their local machine. This presents an issue to where there's a new aspect being brought into their workflow, but when it comes to comparison, it's still something that people are expecting to do via their local machines. So as firms attempt to be more agile and to adapt to new workflows while still delivering the best possible results, that's where something such as server comparison can really make the life of a firm as well as the end user a lot simpler and give them that comparison in a way that's easy for them to digest. So a little bit about server comparison. Big advantage is that, as I touched on a little bit earlier, it's going to be able to evolve as the user workflow evolves. So if I'm someone to where, I really do live off that mobile device where I'm constantly on the road, I'm getting emails with new versions of documents, and I can view those documents, but what I can't do is, do anything further with that. That's where, by utilizing server comparison, we are going to be able to adapt to those new workflows while still delivering the results that everyone wants. Supporting remote workers is another advantage that server comparison brings into play. So today, if I'm a remote worker, in order to access my comparison solution, I might have to jump onto a VPN or jump into a Citrix environment. And there is a great story about a firm that we work with, and they actually did an internal audit on how many clicks, how much does each click cost the firm. What they realized was that for each click, it translated into $6. So this is where, instead of me as a user having to spend my time to jump into a VPN, that means nowadays there might be that two-factor authentication, multiple steps involved. Instead of having to do any of that, I can actually directly, by using server comparison, get a document, send it out, and get back a red line of that document compared to the former document without having to take those extra steps. So it's adapting to the workflows that are changing today, as well as allowing us to support any type of remote workers, making their life a little bit easier there. So today, I'll actually be touching on a couple of different use cases as to how you can leverage server comparison to get the results that the attorneys and the legal staff want without having to take those extra steps if they are using a different type of workflow for different types of devices. So first one I wanted to jump into is comparison via mobile devices. So traditionally, I might have been working on my machine. I have a version A of my document, and then someone sends me version B. Lawyers do have the ability today to actually tap into their DMS via their mobile device. So this is where, again, that workflow gets a bit fractured. I'm able to view my documents on a mobile device. I'm able to access old documents via my document management system, but now what? Am I going to pull up my version A, version B, and compare them manually? Or am I going to have the ability to, let's say, jump on my mobile device onto a task server, whatever it might be there, and actually compare these two documents? So this is where, again, we want to cut that fracture in the workflow to where, okay, I have my document in hand, I have my old document in hand. Now what? Do I have to wait to jump onto my local machine to compare these? No. We want to give them that autonomy and that flexibility to, let's say I'm in the middle of the security line at the airport. Instead of waiting to get to my gate, I can just directly pull version A, version B, get my comparison on my mobile device, and keep on working. So giving people back time and also adapting to these new workflows that they might be accustomed to. And instead of, as a law firm, telling them, you have this new workflow, you have to create 3 extra steps to accomplish what you were doing already. Instead, we're able to fit into that workflow and make it a seamless workflow as well as simplify it for them. Non-Windows devices. So one of the advantages, as I touched on a little bit earlier, of my role here is I really do get to speak to all types of law firms, and I especially worked with smaller firms. And a theme, while not the majority, but it is becoming increasingly more common, is people are using Apple machines, their iPads, whatever it might be, to actually do their work. So this raises a question of, the legal industry, for the most part, has been Windows-based with Windows-based applications. But as users are deviating from Windows machines, we have to make sure that we can help them accomplish what they need to do without telling them, hey, sorry, non-Windows machine, there's not much we can do for you there. Not only that, but also I was recently down in Oklahoma a couple months ago, and I was able to speak to the director of innovation technology at the law school, and within 10 minutes of our conversation, I asked him, what are some of the biggest trends that you've seen as you've been working with these students that are about to go out and actually be in the workforce and at these firms? And one of the first things he mentioned to me was, everyone here is used to working on a Mac. Everyone is asking me, okay, does that work on a Mac? Does that work on an iPad? And again, that's circling back to that evolving workflow. 20 years ago, you might have said, hey, I have a Mac, and if you tried to go into a law firm with that, they would have probably told you, go get a Windows machine. What we have to do is we have to realize that trends are changing. The way people are used to working is changing. How can we fit into that? So by using browsers, by me being able to jump onto a website and compare my documents there, I can keep the workflow that I'm accustomed to, working from a Mac, from an iPad, whatever it might be, without having to completely change what I'm doing there. So we have to be able to put streamlined processes into place for them to be able to complete their workflows on a Mac without telling them, hey, you need to jump onto a VPN, you need to jump into a Citrix environment. Instead, they're already working on that machine. Why not make sure that, okay, you're already here, the next thing you need to do is do this on the same machine you're on, instead of expecting them to jump through hurdles to accomplish a comparison there. So this is another area where we can use our server comparison, give them the ability to actually leverage what they already have out there, what they're already doing, and get what they need, and give them the result that they're used to there. Comparison from Office 365 is another big thing where, as I've been speaking to firms, there are more and more firms migrating to Office 365, and as it's becoming the standard, we have to be ready to meet the needs of, okay, I'm in 365 now, and I don't want to go to Chrome, I don't want to search for a comparison website. I actually want something that I can access straight from Office 365. This is where we can utilize our web apps to make sure, hey, you're already here, you're already doing things a certain way. Again, here's a web app. You can download it directly from the Office store if that's what you need to, and then you can just keep on working. So I think one of the biggest things that I've gathered from working here at Latera Microsystems and do work with a fair amount of former attorneys that used to practice themselves is they always tell me in an ideal world as an attorney, I would live in 3 places: my email, my DMS, and then Microsoft Word. So again, delivering that streamline of, okay, this is where you spend the majority of your time. Let's keep you here. And instead of you having to jump out to be able to accomplish a task, let's give you the ability to accomplish that task in the workflow that you're already used to. So whether that's something to where as more and more firms go in that direction, we have to be ready to meet their needs. And then email client. So let's paint the picture of I'm an attorney, and about an hour ago I sent off a version of my document, and as I'm going through the airport, I get an email with the edited version. I'm about to go through security. I don't have time to log onto a web app on my mobile device, nor do I have the time to actually sit down, pull out my laptop, and access my comparison solution as traditionally was done. What I can do, though, however, and this is something to where it's simplifying the process, it's speeding up the process, is by utilizing server comparison, I can actually send out an email to a specified email address with 2 versions of that document and get an email back with my red line. And I was actually on my way into work yesterday. I got a email from a colleague who had sent over a Word document, and my first reaction was not, okay, let me wait till I'm in the office to actually view this document. It was, okay, I'm on my phone, I'm in my email, let me open up this Word document and view it. So that's something that, if attorney is used to that workflow to be able to view their documents right right within their email, why give them that extra step to have to go and jump onto a website or jump onto their local machine? Instead, let's let them be able to send out the documents, get an email back, view their red line. So by the time that attorney gets to the gate, they already have a good understanding as to what's changed in this document without having to say, let me spend 10, 15 minutes trying to do this myself. So this is, again, another way of, this. You might not be aware of it at your own firm, that this is something that attorneys are frequenting when it comes to viewing everything via their email, via their mobile devices. What we can do, however, is meet their needs and give them a way to say, all right, this is way easier than me having to spend that extra time going about it in the traditional method, and give them the big thing here is we want to make sure that we're fitting into these new workflows. And we're not saying that we're going to go and we're going to give you the exact same experience on a mobile device. We're not going to give you the exact same experience on your email client. What we are going to give you are the results that you need to be able to move forward with the deal with the client that you're working on. So with that said, I do want to show you a couple of ways to what it would look like if I was working from both a mobile device as well as if I decided that I wanted to view a comparison on my web browser, whatever it might be. So here, let's envision me being on one of my mobile devices right now. I know that I have these 2 documents that I need to be able to compare, and I want to get those comparisons quickly. I don't want to have to wait to be on, to be able to sit down, pull open my machine. If I have the comparison solution right there, jump into the comparison solution and compare it. What I want to do is, as I'm in my Uber, in the backseat of my Uber, I want to be able to pull out my phone and compare the documents that I need to compare. So here, I can jump into select the original version, choose whatever the version might be, select whatever the modified version here, and then I'm able to get my comparison. So what I'm going to be able to see is, okay, I have my my red line, what does this look like? And now I can view it. I can say, all right, this is what was added. I can see there were some additions here. I can see any changes here, but the key is that I was able to access this from my mobile device. I didn't have to create an extra step in my workflow to get this. Instead, as I was sitting in the back of my Uber, I got my new version. I said, okay, it's time to go compare it to my previous version. Let's say though that I'm at home, but I'm used to working on a Mac. That's what I predominantly work on. I just started my own firm. I'm a sole practitioner at this point, and I want to still be able to get comparisons in an easy to read manner. That's where I can actually, by using my web browser, access my comparison right here. So this isn't a case where I'm on a traditional Windows machine. Instead, I'm able to view this from a Mac, from my iPad, whatever it might be that I'm used to working on, and quickly say, okay, what are my changes? What are my changes in content? What are my changes in numbering? But again, what we're doing here is we're not changing. We're not, making sure, hey, what we just did on your mobile, this is what it's going to look like when you do it on your Apple machine, on your iPad. Instead, two different workflows that we still, at the end of the day, get the results that we need. So these are a couple of the ways that you can really leverage server comparison. And if it is something to where you as a firm are looking to become more agile, to become more innovative, this is a step that you can take to say, okay, we understand that we as a firm might not have a complete understanding of every workflow under our roof, but what we want to do is we want to be able to meet the workflows that our staff is doing and allow them to go about their day-to-day, to go about their workflow in a way that's easy for them without saying, okay, you want to do things a certain way, here's 5 extra steps to what you're already doing. Again, it's making sure that they can do their day-to-day while getting the results that they care about. So with that, that is what I wanted to cover today. At this point, we can open it up to any questions.
All right, so we're going to just take a minute or two to review questions, and then we will return shortly. All right, so we have our first question from Jim. He is curious as to whether you can elaborate more on the email capability.
Sure. So this this is something to where I've actually seen more and more often to where, especially as DMSs are allowing attorneys to view their documents mobilely more often, where let's say I'm working with my client, I send off a document to them, and then they send back the modified version there. What I can do is, instead of, like I mentioned earlier, having to find somewhere to open up my local machine or to send it off to an associate, tell them, hey, I just got these 2 documents, I need you to compare them. Instead, by sending it to an email address that the firm has set up, I can send off those 2 versions of that document, get back a red line, immediately be able to view it, and have a good understanding of what's changed without ever having left my email client. So again, it's minimizing the amount of steps it takes for us to get those results.
All right, thank you, Victor. And then our second question comes from Dennis. Are there additional fees involved, or is this part of the LDE suite?
So this is, for that, I would recommend reaching out to whoever your account executive might be, and they'll be able to highlight some, in terms of how that fits into the suite. That is something to where, whoever, and if not, you can always reach out to info@latera.com, and they'll be able to get back to you there.
Great, thank you. So we have a lot of questions coming in, so just hold on a second. We're scrolling through and seeing which one we can answer next. So hold right, we have another question. Victor, you're back with the Uber example. You said on my mobile device, but your screen showed a standard Windows Explorer view. Can you explain that again?
Sure. So originally we were hoping to be able to mirror my mobile device onto the GoToMeeting here today, but fortunately we were not able to set that up. But while this is a regular browser here, what the user would see would be this right here. So the server comparison result, this would be their screen. So this is on a regular browser, but if I were an end user, this right here, the server comparison result is what I would see. So hopefully that clears that up for you.
Great, thank you. And then our next question. Our next question is there a way to compare attachments that come through via email on mobile device for server comparison? If so, how would you do that?
Yep, so that would be where the firm would actually set up a specified email address to where if I got attachments and I wanted to have them compared, I would send those attachments off to that specified email address, and then I would get a red line back. So that is something we understand that a lot of documents are shared via email. We want to make it easy in terms of, okay, I have these two attachments, I need to compare them. Let me send them to the specified email address and get my red line back.
Excellent. And then for our final question. Oh, looks like those were all the questions we actually had that are appearing in our questions panel. With that said, any more do get submitted. We will send a follow-up afterwards personally through email. So thank you, Victor, for presenting today's session. If you guys are curious as to what we had hosted in the past and also what webinars we have coming up next, you could go to latera.com/webinars to see our entire webinar archive. Our next one is in 2 weeks after the time we have a Latera Learning, and then on September 5th, we have an industry insights about what we've learned at Ilvaton. So make sure you sign up for that. All right. Thank you, Victor, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a good day.
Have a great day.